Welcome. We have our next session. Actually, it's in two parts. First, we're going to be discussing in the Southeast Europe electricity market dynamics. And first, we'll be talking on my panel about infrastructure and markets. And then later on, nuclear energy on a different panel. We're going to focus on power demand in the region. The integration of renewables is a challenge for the networks in terms of energy security. We have a very interesting panel today. Before we go into introductory remarks and then we're going to have a discussion, I just want to briefly say, I have with me Stelios Komlidis. He's the Director of Operational Business Department, Southeast Electricity Network Coordination Center in Thessaloniki. Pantelis Viskas. He's a professor, Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering from Aristotle University, also in Thessaloniki. Effie Emilioni, market analyst and back office department manager at Elpedison. Alexander Mijuskovic from Montenegro. He's the chairman and board of directors and transmission system operator CGES in Montenegro. Later, we're going to have online from Albania, Shakim Bonza will join us from South SCA Consulting in Tirana. And last but not least, Antonis Kontolean. He's the chairman of the board of the Hellenic Union of Industrial Consumers of Energy, UNICEN in Greece. And we're glad to have your experience in this panel as well. I'm going to start with Stelios, his opening remarks. And I mean, you have a very key role in coordination and avoiding blackouts. Stelios, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, for sure, we have a task to maintain the security of electricity networks in the southeast of Europe and Europe in general, because generally blackouts don't tend to basically stick to one area necessarily. They can be affecting other areas in Europe. I actually have a presentation that perhaps I need to move on.
Go ahead.
You can hear me, I hope. A very big thanks before I start to ENA and Kostis Tambolis for the invitation and everybody else who attends. The Security Center of Thessaloniki has been set up following the May 2020 decision to set a security coordination center in the southeast of Europe. My presentation will include the reasons why we're here, some very significant events that led basically to the creation of these security centers, and also the role of RCCs in Europe as they are now and what we're expecting to do in the future. First of all, I don't know if some of you remember, there were a couple of incidents back in 2003 and 2006. The first one was in Italy in September 2003, where we had a large import from Italy to Italy from Switzerland. And due to various, I would call, unfortunate events, we ended up with a cascading effect with a blackout in Italy, costing close to 1.2 billion euros. That was the first sort of notice in Europe. The second one was, and bigger one perhaps, was in 2006. That was in Germany, mostly, with the borders with Netherlands. At about 2138, a series of, again, unfortunate events led to the separation of the European network in three different parts. So the frequency was basically different in those three parts. And the event led to TSOs basically either losing demand or needing special measures for that. So this event literally was the kickstarting of the introduction of RCCs in Europe and for closer cooperation between the TSOs and the relative measures. Now, following this, we had the creation of the first RCCs with Corezo based in Brussels being introduced in 2008. TSNet was closely followed, located in Munich, again in 2008. The one in Belgrade followed up in 2015, which was SEC. And the Nordics created their own, located in Copenhagen in 2016, together with the Baltics. Baltics has a slightly different setup in their creation, as they're located in 3 different places in the 3 capitals. Now, Selin CC was introduced for the first time, was established in 2020, and the first operation came into service in 2021, as you will see in the next few slides. The role of RCCs was effectively to allow the integration of renewable sources as they are associated with intermittency, so that makes the task even harder. To help increase the cross-border exchanges, which is also a difficult factor to predict sometimes due to the renewables. We also have to coordinate the high voltage electricity flows for the TSOs, and at the same time we have to do these with transparency for the markets while safeguarding the security. Selin CC, the center of Southeast Europe, basically serves the TSOs of Bulgaria, Greece, Italy, and Romania. But the shareholding in the company is divided by 3, basically ESO with an equal share with IPTO of Greece and Terna of Italy, 33% each. We have at the moment approximately 24 highly qualified employees, and we run the services on 24 hours, 365 continuous operation during the day. We also have a subsidiary in Italy that calculates the flow or megawatt flow on the DC cable between Greece and Italy that you can see on the map. It's the purple line that separates Greece and Italy, named as GRID area. The services that we provide to our TSOs at the moment is the number is 6. So we have the European Common Grid Model delivery. We do this on a pan-European level as well. It's one of the pan-European services that we'll discuss briefly later on. The coordinated security analysis, the N-1 analysis on the network, where we basically check for constraints and overloads. The coordinated capacity calculation, where we basically calculate what is the maximum safely permitted megawatt or electricity that can flow in both directions on any border. And this basically facilitates the market to allow higher capacities into the market. We also have the short-term adequacy service, which is a study performed for the week ahead to check if the demand basically can be covered by the generation, and if there's an issue, this is done originally in a pan-European level, but if there's an issue, then a regional study needs to be run. Outage planning coordination is the next service that basically checks the maintenance plans of the TSOs, and if there's an issue again detected on the pan-European level, then a regional OPI outage planning is run. The critical grid situation is the final service, the 6th service that we put in place fairly recently, and this is basically the facilitation of TSOs for handling rare but severe incidents, storms, earthquakes, things like that. Now, the first service that I mentioned is the CGM, where what we do is we take the individual grid models from each TSO and we merge these into a common grid, where we can basically run the flows of the studies on the combined model of the whole of Europe. The CSA is the coordinated security analysis. In this study, basically, we run, after we have created the common grid model, we run a security analysis with contingency lists that have been provided by the TSOs, and we run the N-1 analysis on the network. The added value for that one is basically to determine preventive remedial actions in advance, the day before usually, and the TSO is forewarned of potential issues on the network in advance. They can take the necessary actions. The third service that I mentioned was the capacity calculation. As I mentioned, we look after the borders of Bulgaria to Greece, Greece to Italy, and Bulgaria to Romania at the moment. And the Greece to Italy capacity calculation is performed by the subsidiary company Esperia in Italy, which is based in Italy, in Rome, whereas the other two borders are performed by us. And the meaning of this service is to calculate what's the maximum permitted megawatts that can flow in both directions on each border. You can see some, I would say, statistical facts here, where we can see that the average NTC reduction by the TSOs is 92 megawatts for 2022, where it's only 49 megawatts in 2023. This simply indicates that as time goes by, the TSOs trust our calculations and our analysis more and more, and therefore they can basically reduce or curtail the available capacity less each year. The same is done on the long-term horizon as well, on the month ahead and year ahead horizon. And again, the graphics show you this reduction once again between 2023 and 2024. The remaining three services that I mentioned earlier, outage planning coordination, short-term adequacy, and critical grid situation, simply mean that we run this, the grid with security under all conditions. We also have the pan-European services for CGM, OPC, and SDA. Selin CC participates in those, in all these three services, and we basically deliver the CGM on a pan-European level for other TSOs to be able to access. This year was also the first time that Selin CC has performed the year ahead creation of the CGM, which was quite successful, and we will basically be candidates for performing that again in the near future, maybe even next year. Now, one of the big challenges for us is the further services and tasks that need to be added to our portfolio and what we offer to our TSOs, and these stem from the clean energy package, where we end up with 16 RCC tasks. These ones are shown on the graph, where we basically have the maximum entry capacity as one of them. Perhaps it wouldn't be logical to go through all of them one by one, but there's a variety of tasks that you can see in darker blue around in order to basically fulfill those obligations. A task that's due to be fulfilled also this year is the 70% rule. This is something that, due to the specificities of the area, we operate in an area where we have 3 EU countries, but there's also the West Balkan 6, where there's companies that are not members of the EU, and therefore they don't have to comply with all the regulations that the EU countries do. And the 70% rule simply requires an arrangement between EU and non-EU countries in order to be able to perform the task. So the 70% rule has been planned to be in place as of the 1st of January 2025, and we're basically working on that to implement by developing the necessary tools for that. Another challenge is the ROSC implementation, which also needs to be in place in the near future, with using remedial action optimizers for the remedial actions that we basically propose to the TSOs. Additional tasks that are quite challenging for the future is the sizing of reserves, reserve capacity, and the sharing of reserves amongst the TSOs. Also, the facilitation of the regional procurement of balancing capacity is another task that we have upon us that will also require quite an effort to implement. And the participation on the 10-year network development plan, or TYNDP, on European and more regional level. Also, the identification of regional electricity crisis scenarios and the restoration plans is another aspect or function that we basically participate already this year. We have to check the restoration plans of the TSOs and to put these in place. A brief roadmap of what we have done so far is shown at the moment, so you can see all the services and the timing that they came in service. And at the bottom is the future development with ROSC that I mentioned earlier on, the 70% rule, reserve sizing, and TYNDP. Now, as a company, we have grown since 2020-21 quite significantly. The numbers speak for themselves. We started with about 8 employees in 2020 to grow to nearly double that in 2021, and we keep growing all the way to 2024, where we expect to be close to or just under 30 employees by that time. But the additional tasks that we have simply mean that we will have to grow even faster in the coming years. So this may be a little bit deceptive. If you draw it on a line, we expect the growth to be even higher than this. I'd like to thank you for your attention. I don't know if there's any questions. I would happily answer them.
Okay. Thanks, Stelios. I'm sure there will be questions afterwards.
Okay.
For explaining us the establishing of RCCs in Europe, the regions, and their role in operating with security and transparency in the European grid. And, not mentioning not only in this region, but also you mentioned the Baltics and the Nordics, which, it shows the importance of coordination in terms of energy security. And also the role of RCCs in the integration of renewables. Talking about the integration of renewables, my next panelist, Pantelis Biskas, he's going to talk about the effect of renewable RES curtailments in the Greek power system. Pantelis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank Mr. Stambolis and INE for this kind invitation and the ability to discuss about these issues in this very important panel. My speech today is for renewable curtailments, RES curtailments, which take place in Greece in the last at least 1.5 years. But they have been excessive in the last 3 months. The renewable curtailments are mainly now realized at system level and at less extent in distribution system level, distribution network level. Currently, in March and April, we had realized curtailments of about in the last week of March, 3 gigawatt of renewable curtailments. And in April, we have reached the level of 4 gigawatt. 4 gigawatt instantly, but I would say, the integral of this instant curtailments is more or less 0.5 terawatt hours in this 6-month period from January until now. Since we have reached this level in May, in the last week of Easter, in Easter days, we had an increased renewable curtailment reaching up to about 5 gigawatt instantly. And the prospects for the next period, for the next 18 months, is even worse, since we have extreme capacity, a new capacity of photovoltaics to be entering the system in the next 18 months. We expect at least 6 gigawatt of capacity to be added, mainly photovoltaics. And we expect that in October, November 2024, we will reach more than 6 gigawatt of curtailments, and in November 2025 to reach even 8 gigawatt of curtailments. All this stem from the fact that Greece is in the edge of Europe. It's an edge country, so we do not have very reinforced interconnections. The capacity of Greece with neighboring countries only 2.7 gigawatt right now. And the remedy to, let's say, minimize or zeroize, if it's possible, such risk curtailments is interconnections, more interconnection capacity, storage, either in the form of hydropumping or in the form of batteries. Of course, we know that an interconnection to increase its capacity or to add a new interconnection in the system, to build a new interconnection, is something that takes a lot of years from the design until its commissioning and commercial operation. So we expect that a new interconnection would need about 7 to 8 years to materialize. On the other hand, hydro pumping stations, of course, we do not have infinite lakes and rivers in Greece. Hydro pumping design, let's say, to take the applications, to take the connection terms, to take funding and construct a hydro pumping station is about 6 to 8 years again. So the most, let's say, obvious and mid-term measure to counterbalance, to minimize the risk curtailments is probably the batteries. The batteries. Probably the licensing and construction phase until the final license to be taken by the state. Construction license, construction and operation license is more or less 1.5 years, 1.5 years, because the licensing part is 6 months, and if it takes connection terms, from connection terms to commercial operation is about 9 to 12 months. The infrastructure is 6 months to be delivered, and the rest 6 months is more or less the other stages of the development. So it would be obvious that storage would be the obvious measure for minimizing, not zeroizing, but minimizing risk curtailments in Greece. Currently, we have zero storage. We have only pumping stations, 470 megawatt of hydro pumping stations of old PPC hydro pumping facilities in Sphikia and Thesavros, which operate not at their full capacity, but at their capacity, taking into account the hydraulic constraints that are active in the rivers that are located. We expect another hydro pumping station in Amphilochia to be built in 2026 or 2027, which will be 680 megawatt. But again, the sum of these two is 1,200 megawatt of capacity. As we earlier discussed, the expected risk curtailment in September-October 2025 is going to reach 8 gigawatt. So it's not a matter of energy, because hydro pumping stations, of course, can withdraw a large amount of energy for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, and inject it afterwards in the system for 6 hours. It's a matter of capacity. It's a matter of power. We have an extreme problem in Greece in capacity, since we do not have any batteries installed yet. 2 minutes. So, what should we expect for the future? We should expect that the ministry unlocks the battery connection term process. Currently is completely locked, so that the interested investors can seek for funding and construct their batteries as soon as possible. What would that result? It would result to increased renewable injections. it would result in better operation of the system by ADMIE, by the system operator, because batteries can provide voltage control, can provide frequency control, can provide all types of reserves, primary, secondary, tertiary, even fast frequency reserve, which cannot be provided by other technologies. And would be also very useful for the industry, because renewables and batteries provide a cheaper, less expensive energy source for the industry rather than gas units or any other type of conventional generation. So the industry would be extremely happy if we had storage entities in Greece, of course, together with renewables. So for the prospect for 2030 would be that if the NECP in Greece is materialized as written, with 3.1 gigawatt of batteries and 30 gigawatt of renewable sources, then we would have more than 15% of renewable curtailments in 2030. The other prospect would be to install more batteries in Greece, which is my proposal, to reach 7 to 8 gigawatt of batteries, so that we would be able to to decrease significantly the energy cost in Greece. It would be good for the customers, it would be good for the industry, it would be good for ADMIE, it would be good for the renewable producers to have less curtailments. And of course, in this case, gas units would produce less, which is not bad for customers. It's bad for gas producers only. This is all for me. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thanks, Pandelis. And, with the new capacity of photovoltaics in the next 6 months, I mean, the storage is going to be an issue, definitely, it looks like. And, we have industry representatives here as well. And I'm looking forward to the discussion afterwards to see how the challenge of RES curtailments in the industry. Effie from Elpedison, she's going to address the evolution of power demand in the region, and discuss also the energy mix as well.
So, good morning to everyone. I would also like to thank Mr. Stamboulis for their invitation to speak at this very important conference. When we discuss about electricity systems, we usually talk about the supply side, how electricity will be produced. Recently, we talk a lot about the grids and whether they are constrained, if you have enough interconnections. But we overlook the other side of the equation, which is the power demand. However, the demand will play an increasingly important role, and we really need to pay attention to it. Here we have the total demand for our region, the Southeast Europe region, over the last years. You may see that we had a small dip in 2020. This is due to the pandemic. We had a recovery, but unfortunately it was a brief recovery. And then again in 2022, the demand decreased. This was due to the energy crisis. If you look on the graph on the right, you may see that even in 2024, the demand has not recovered. And this is not the situation only here, but in the rest of Europe. This very nice graph, the yellow line shows the deviation from the average of 2015 to 2019. So the deviation from what was a normal period. We have here also the same pattern. In 2022, we had a decrease, a short-lived increase, and then after the second half of 2022, a very sharp decrease due to the high prices. We thought we had a recovery at the end of 2023, but still, so far in 2024, the demand ranges from 3 to 10% below what was normal. So why has demand decreased? Of course, we have the economic reasons. The economic slowdown has decreased the consumption of goods generally, which reduced the industrial production and therefore the industrial demand. We saw that the industries suffered heavily due to high prices during the crisis, and maybe some of this demand is lost forever. We have the weather element. The recent winters were very, very mild and decreased the need for heating, which is an important component of the power demand in some countries. Energy efficiency plays some role. We have more energy efficient appliances, industrial processes, so we saw some reduction there. We see behavioral changes. People are much more aware about their use of energy, and some lifestyle changes, for example, the remote working might have played a role. We must not forget the market dynamics. When prices were very high, people and businesses reduced their consumption to cut down their costs. And there is also a gray area. We have a lot of generation at distribution level. This means it is very close to the consumption. So maybe some demand is not registered in the central systems. So why is it important that the demand of the electricity increases? Here I will present some things about Greece, but a lot of countries have made the same choices. Greece has selected the electricity to be one of the main carriers to reduce the emissions across the economy. The National Energy and Climate Plan has set some very ambitious targets for electrification of heating and cooling, land transport, and industry. Until now, these sectors were fueled by other energy sources, and if we manage to electrify them, we will power them by renewables. Having all this in mind, the national plan foresaw for 2025 61 terawatt hours of demand, of power demand. Last year we had 49. And a small part of this will be covered when Crete Island becomes fully interconnected, but I think we are falling a lot behind the electrification targets in our country. And just to remind you, just to point out that renewables do cover a very big and increasing part of the power demand today, but this is the traditional demand, and the target we have is for the whole economy, for the whole, for the gross final consumption. The target is 44% by 2030. And we must not forget that the more we electrify the economy, the more we must ensure the security of supply and the stability of the markets. Now I will move very quickly to a shorter horizon. This is just one day, this spring, it's a Monday. On the top graph, you may see the demand curves in all the countries of our region. And you may notice that each country has a different pattern, and this has to do with how electricity is used. For example, here in Greece, we have very low use of electricity in the industry, and we use electricity mainly for the commercial and public services. And if we subtract from these curves the must-run generation, the renewables, the nuclear, the hydro, then we are left with a residual demand. You may notice that during the noon, when the solar generation peaks, a lot of countries have a very low residual demand or even negative. This means that they are potential exporters. And the more we invest in renewables, the more the dynamics between countries will change. Here we have for the same day, the Greek energy mix. You may see here that during the noon, almost all Greek demand was met by renewables. But then in the afternoon, we had flexible generation had to come quickly in to cover the demand. So we had the gas generation from 0.5 megawatt to almost 7 times more, 3.6, and with an additional 1 megawatt of hydro. And that was to cover the variable generation of renewables. And this is not something we see only within days, but also within a month, between days. For example, I have the exact same graph for April. There are some days where renewables really outperformed, they covered most of the demand, but we have other days when the generation more than halved. So we had to have available controllable generation, hydro, gas, or even imports to cover the demand these days. The situation is that since the renewables will increase their generation in the coming years, and they will outplace the gas units. And the gas units are right now and will be essential to cover flexibility and adequacy. So I would like to really point out that it's necessary to have a capacity remuneration mechanism like the ones that already exist in other European countries, so as the country can procure and remunerate such services. So this is pretty much. Thank you for your attention, and I will be happy to take questions afterwards.
Thanks so much, Effie, for this very, very interesting presentation. And explaining to us about the power demand in the region and also the energy mix. I think it's very important. We're moving up in the same region now with Alexander. He, as I mentioned earlier, he's the chairman for the Montenegro Transmission System Operator. And Alexander, he's going to talk about the main challenges of renewable integration into the network. Alexander?
Thank you very much. I'm always happy to be here in Thessaloniki, and I'm participating on beginning, and thanks, Iene, once again. I prepared some presentation. I would like to open some discussion, and my first slide is something which we already have spoken about. So we could see this NTC is in Europe, and I'm from transmission system operator, and everyone who is dealing with renewables speaking about interconnections. So we think that Montenegro is small country, but it is hub because we have this undersea cable to Italy, and we have many neighbors which produce a lot of energy. So for us, it is very challenging. And if I will start with discussion, I will just mention that our maximum consumption is just 400 megawatt. This is something which is low, but we already have a lot of interest for the new renewables. And in our 5 years investment plan, we have a lot of new projects. I will mention this Montenegro, Italy undersea cable. So you all know about this, but why I mention this once again, because we have expectation that in 2027 we will have second pole of this cable, and we will have double capacity 1,200 megawatts. On this slide, I would like to show you how this energy is transferring from region to region. So you can see that in 2023, all energy was from Montenegro or for this region to Italy. And on this slide, on your right side, you can see how these flows are changing. So in the one day, you can see that through the cable, energy went from one country to another and changing. So when we are speaking about this renewables, process, energy flows, nobody think about whole system in Europe that we have some days when we have big transfer of electricity from the south to the north, and in the same day we have the opposite situation. We are not sure that the system is ready to these big changes. So coming to this slide, you can see how big interest in Montenegro is for the renewables. So we have request for 4 gigawatts for the renewables, and which I already mentioned, our maximum consumption is 500. That means that almost 10 times more renewables we have request. We already signed contracts for 2,000 renewables. So how it will look, I don't know. What will happen, I don't know too. And I took part in some conferences, and we have a discussion about this. I have some colleagues from Croatia, and they told us, okay, we will transfer our energy to Bosnia. Then we have colleagues from Bosnia, and he told, okay, we have very good interconnections. We will build new interconnection. We will transfer this energy to Montenegro. And then I was on the floor, and I asked, we have one problem. What Montenegro will do with this energy? So it is not hundreds of megawatts, it is gigawatts. So everyone count of this undersea cable, it is just 600. It's nothing. So in this case, we all have to think: is the interconnection something which we miss? So in some studies, when we calculate production is all in all countries in Western Balkan, we all could see that it is plus of the production. So I will mention another project in our company and in our country. This is Trans-Balkan Corridor. So we all start to speak about interconnections, and I will not spend time on details. I will just inform you how difficult it is to build this line. So we are building this line in Montenegro from one side to another, 10 years, and we are finishing 97% of this line. We are passing 8 municipalities and 2 national parks. And we finish everything, and we have one village which doesn't want lines in their village. So what we will do? So what about integration, about Trans-Balkan Corridor, undersea cables regulation? We have NGOs against us, and we made our best. We tried to have this corridor. We already have in this village, which is near the one very famous river in Montenegro, which is very beautiful. And we are trying Tara River, famous for rafting, and they don't want to have this in their neighbor. What we made? They already have 110 kV line, and we just wanted to have this line with another line to have double line, but we are now stopped. So it is not so easy to manage to build a line. So what I can tell you for my experience, and we are trying to finish everything. Our new projects are new lines from Montenegro to Bosnia. We signed some memorandums. What is easy to do? It is the interconnections with neighbors are not so easy, but it is easy to have increased the transmission capacity. So we are changing these lines. So we are working on this, and we will have much more transmission capacity with these new lines. We will work on a new line with Albania too. So we are trying our best to do and to build as much as possible. At the end of my presentation, I will speak a little bit about electricity integration package. It is 4 regulations that are part of the clean energy package and 5 network codes. So what we are doing, the plan is to complete the process of transposing into the national legislation of Montenegro at the end of this year. We hope that we will do, but significant part of activities needs regional cooperation, but there is no necessary progress. So we will have some problem with the dynamic plan. So for the end of my presentation, to mention that we have this CCR Italy Montenegro. It is very, very important for us. And to mention that we will have this first coupling between Italy and Montenegro. We are working on that. Good news is that our power exchange has been designed as NEMO. So we expect that in the next year we will have this market coupling. We already have some meetings with regulators, with ministry in Rome and in Montenegro. And my conclusion, I delete conclusion this morning because I would like to tell you something from my experience. So we have to have good regional cooperation, and somebody from the region must be involved into the process. Slavko maybe will remember Oliver Koch and his vision that market coupling will be tomorrow. It was 12 years ago, and we have some discussion. And he told me, in that time I was director of auction office, and he told me, this auction office is not so important. Market company will be tomorrow. And we have big discussion. And because I know region, I was more than sure that we will not have market company, especially in my country. I have neighbors, and I know that we will not manage. And the end of my presentation and discussion, I would like to tell that we from the TSO, we are responsible for the supply, and we have to think about our customers, our industry, and our citizens. And when we will have this, what we start with this presentation of this session with these blackouts beginning on 2004 and 6, I spent a lot of time in dispatch room, and I know what is the blackouts and how could you feel and what are consequences with these blackouts. So concluding my presentation, our main responsibility is to have security of supply of the country, and nobody will ask me when I will be in blackout what is 70% usage of the capacities, or do I have all regulations in place. Thank you very much.
You know, as you mentioned, the important role of the TSOs, I mean, in the region and building interconnections. And, you know, that's like you mentioned, it goes back to what Stelio said in the beginning about the importance that electricity does not stop at the borders and power. And that's why, I mean, you know, the interconnectors with in the region and with the other countries. And you mentioned the that you're building a new line with Albania, and I don't know if we have. We have, okay. Our next speaker, who's he can't join us here, but he's joining us from Tirana, and Sakim. We just mentioned. I mean. Your colleague from Montenegro mentioned the new line, and with Albania, and also it will be interesting. Thanks for joining us online and talk us about the update on the latest developments in the Albanian power sector. Thanks. Oops.
Mr. Geropoulos, thank you very much. And I would like also to thank Mr. Stamboulis and Diana for organizing this very informative meeting where we share knowledge and we share information. It is quite interesting that all the subjects I have in my presentation are very similar with presentations that were made by previous panelists, but I'll go through them and you will see yourself what are the similarities. So it's just an update on what has happened in the Albanian power sector. And I'm starting with the production. So you see in the graph that the blue lane shows what the power production has been in Albania from 2009 to 2023. And being based on hydro, you can see the variation of power production due to hydrology of each year. And then you can see also on the brown line, which is the consumption. What we can notice here is that the domestic production has been steadily increasing despite the fluctuations due to weather conditions. And so has the demand for electricity. But it's interesting to see here that the demand has not recovered, as Ms. Milioni mentioned earlier. And then we have the projections of the power demand in the future, and there are 3 scenarios. And it looks like that the demand is more on the low side scenario. And then let's see why all this has happened. This graph shows the capacities that have been implemented in Albania. So we inherit a lot of large dam hydropower plants, but starting from 2010 and on, there have been several small hydropower plants, basically run of the river, that has been added into the capacity of the system. And as you can see, the dotted red line, it shows the evolution of the share of intermittent renewables as part of the total capacity of the system. And it steadily grows. And in 2024, this year, because last year it was insignificant, we see the photovoltaics taking an increasing share of the production of the generation capacity. And the projections are then in 2028, there will be also wind, part of the intermittent renewables. And then, but if now in 2024, in April, it was 34% part of the total capacity was intermittent renewables. Then by 2032, it will go up to 50%. Let's have a look on the list of projects that are already queuing to having their approvals for connection agreement. As you can see, the small hydropower plants constitute a minor share, and this comes from the fact that the hydropower capacity is already almost exhausted. But you can easily see that the requests for photovoltaics and wind power, they are tremendous. So for photovoltaic is more than double the current installed capacity, and wind as well is at 4.3 gigawatt, so which is a lot. And if we have a look at the total, we can see that from the interest from the investors is quite high. We have a 9.3 gigawatt demand for new generators, out of which only around 170 have been approved, which also shows that the approval process is quite bureaucratic and taking a lot of time. And all this increase of the share of renewables brings the similar challenges as Mr. Piskas mentioned for the Greek system. So we already have 34% of renewables in our system. So the demand for storage and balancing resources is increasing. And this is the reason that Cash Power Utility, the main public power utility, is considering building a pumping storage in the Drini River Cascade. And so is Statkraft, which has two large dam hydropower plants in the Voli River. And of course, there are projects about natural gas-fired power plants. We already have one in Vlora, which is not operating due to lack of gas. And Terna and Albanian Gener 2 are also planning, and they've already got the permission to build a 170 megawatt gas-fired power plant in the vicinity of Trans-Adriatic Pipeline project. And battery is also an alternative. No real projects have already been proposed, but it is under discussion. And hydrogen, although it's costly and much more challenging. And all this certainly needs to be associated with the strengthening and increase of capacity in the transmission system mainly, but also in the distribution system, because a few new generators are also connected into the distribution system for the photovoltaics and small hydropower plants. Interconnection capacities need also to be strengthened, and eventually some regulation regarding the approval of new projects that should be associated with storage and balancing capacities should be taken into consideration. And transmission system is the core of the system. If we see at the Albanian TSO, it has some challenges with the aging and obsolete infrastructure, despite huge investments they've been doing so far. They need to complete an internal ring of 400 kilovolts. They also need to improve the automation and digitalization of the system, and a lot of projects related with their connection with distribution system. So what are the projects that the Albanian TSO has under implementation? Is the connection with North Macedonia, 400 kilovolt, is the internal circuit in Albania, the DSO connections, which I mentioned earlier, and the new interconnections that are part of the 10-year network development plans of the Albanian TSO. It's a new connection, 400 kilovolt with Greece, starting from Fier and ending to Arachthos. 3 interconnection lines with Montenegro, which Alexander mentioned earlier. There are also two new interconnection lines with Kosovo, and then another 110 kilovolt with North Macedonia. And there is a discussion about building another subsea interconnection line like the one that Montenegro already has, with a capacity of 500 megawatt. It will start from Vlor and end up to Brindisi. And with all the developments in the region, I believe there is plenty of room for this new pipeline as well. Another major development in the Albanian power sector has been the establishment of Alpex. It started from 2020 with a lot of preparatory work. Last year in April, it started the day-ahead market. And this year, the coupling started with Kosovo, or the day-ahead marketing. We expect by the end of this year to have the intraday auction. So these are some of the milestones of the Albanian Alpex, some figures that show how it has developed within less than 2 years' time. So if last year the whole amount of traded volumes was something like 830,000 megawatt hours, only during the 4 months of this year, it reached nearly 650 megawatt hours. And we have also the turnover of the last year that was nearly 170 million, and only for the 4 first months this year is more than 90 million. So the exchange members are also increasing from 17 to 25, and the general clearing members from 1 to 4 this year. And this graph shows the performance of the first 4 months of this year next to HUPEX and HENEX. And this is very helpful for the Albanian power market due to the fact that so far HUPEX has been the reference exchange for Albania. But then now the numbers show that the behavior is much closer to HENEX rather than HUPEX. So a very helpful indicator. We as C Consulting, we've also made an assessment of the level of market concentration in Albania by use of 3 main indicators. The first one is the C5, which shows the market share held by 5 largest generators of capacity and production in Albania. The second indicator is showing the companies that own a share that is greater than 5%. And the third one is Herfindahl Hirschman index. And then I'll go through them. So it simply shows that the generation capacity of the 5 main players has decreased over time, but at the same time, the main player remains cash, which is the public utility, followed by Devol Hydropower. The same is true also for power production. So again, cash remains the main player, but there is an increasing level of new players. And then the companies owning a share of higher than 5% again is cash and Devol Hydropower, and the same is true for power production. So the Albanian market is quite concentrated, and then the same is also shown by the calculation of Herfindahl Hirschman index, which is the sum of the square market share of each participant in the market. And these are the references used by the Council of European Union and the US Department of Justice, which are very similar to each other. And then here it shows how this index has evolved over time. What is important to see is that it has a decreasing tendency, but again, the value of the indicator is quite high, which shows that the Albanian power market is highly concentrated. So with this one, I conclude my presentation and would be happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bosco, and providing a really good update on the developments of the Albanian power sector. I mean, it's very concentrated, but it's also, it's playing a big role in the region. We're going back to Greece and talking about Greek, the green transition and competitiveness of the European industry, but with a focus on the Greek industry. We're glad to have Antonis here, who's knows. Has a lot of experience in the sector. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stamoulis, for the invitation. Very good for us to have the opportunity to express our view for the current situation in Greece, but also in Europe. Maybe you don't know who is Unison or Eviken in Greek. We represent the energy-intensive industries in Greece. Okay. So we all discuss about this change in climate. We all know the European Green Deal. Okay, it's a global issue that affects all of us. There is a broad agreement on the goal of reducing CO2 emissions across all sectors, industry, transport, buildings, and energy. But we believe that the goal of reducing emissions by 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 is very ambitious, because we see developing countries at that time increase their emissions. So if Europe makes everything to reduce emissions at these levels, we will not have at the end the intended effect. Because how much is Europe represents? It's 8%. Even if we reduce by 50%, then the value of reducing CO2, it will be very marginal. And of course, we first we have to secure raw materials and efficient technologies, because right now, for example, for CCS or CCU, we are not sure that these technologies are already in place. We concern as well very much about the new taxes that Brussels are introducing, such as carbon border adjustment mechanism, which we will discuss and analyze later. And of course, it is announced from the European Commission that starting from 2026, together with CBAM, they are going to remove the free allowances which are given to energy-intensive industries, and we believe that these two measurements are revenue-generating measures. And we have calculated the expected income to Europe from this CBAM is 12 billion euros, and 10 is coming from the industry, from the reduction in these free allowances. So, of course, all this Green Deal will have an effect. We are going to see a significant increase of CO2 allowances, these guarantees of origin we used to say. And at the same time, they announced a gradual reduction of the free allowances, which are giving today to sectors exposed to the risk of carbon leakage. And how they believe that this can be anticipated, they introduce this carbon border adjustment mechanism. But of course, you understand, if we introduce, if we lower, if we cancel the free allowances which are given today to the energy-intensive industries, like iron, aluminium, fertilizers, cement, and energy, then this will have a result, a big increase in prices for a number of the industrial products I just mentioned. And this is very crucial. We don't believe that already the people, the consumers are know what it will happen. We will see prices of these products, aluminium, fertilizer, cement, iron, to increase. And of course, we strongly believe that this will reduce our competitiveness and will face a strong impact in our exports. And speaking about Greece, it's different condition. Our industries like cement, it's 50% exporting. Also, our steel plants are more than 50% of this production is exported. And if we have an increase in our production cost, and this, when we are going to export, this cost is not given back, you understand, we cannot compete the third countries. Okay. And at the same time, all this, because we heard before that we faced already 3 months ago the problem that production is higher than demand. Demand is not increasing in Greece. So what is the story behind? They believe that through electrification, that means heat pumps instead of standard burners that we have today at homes, and this CCU, which will be introduced in refineries and cement plants, this will increase the demand. But what we believe, in practice, the leveling of playing field and carbon costs, it will be violated, because you understand how we can confirm the accuracy of the imported products coming from third countries. For example, it's very easy, for speaking about China or Turkey, to see if, let's discuss about aluminium which is imported, yes, which is imported. It will be very easy for them to present that this aluminium is produced in Turkey from hydraulic power. So how you can let's say overcome this? So we believe that it will be very difficult, and at the end, and what else more? Let's suppose that every country introduces a similar mechanism, but this mechanism will affect only a share of their production, only these which are exporting. But for the Greek or the European industries, this will affect the total production, even it is consumed inside Europe or we try to export, because at the moment they don't agree to give us back this carbon tax, when we are going to make exports. And we believe also that it will introduce very high risk into the value chain of these products. And of course, they say, but it's not already decided, that they will consider to abolish the compensation of the indirect cost, what we call today, which is, and this will have a significant burden on steelworks and smelters. Just to give you an idea, today for 2023, this compensation is 35 euros per megawatt hour. Can you understand what it will happen if they cancel this? Together, canceling, reducing, but at the end of 2036, the free allowances will be zero. What I believe is that there is no information to the consumers, to the people, that all these costs, all these products that we need for because it's still aluminium is something goes to the cars, goes everything. It will increase, it will double. And how European industry will survive? We are not sure that they have considered correctly all these risks that they have taken. What is behind? We believe that they are trying to find to find money, because we need money in order to, let's say, give subsidies to the industry or to the people to make this electrification, to buy, I say, and this is not good, to buy electrical cars. So this is the European policy. Sorry for this, but they prefer to give subsidies to buy Chinese cars instead of giving subsidies to the European industry. This is the real truth. We have to face it. And what is, let's coming for, if I exceed the time,
sit down and we can just have a 5 minute
1 minute
discussion.
to-
Yeah, no, but we can carry this as a, like, you can be like your wrap-up point for the whole
yes,
panel.
okay.
So, I mean, you can do it from, yeah, okay.
Let's show you what is the problem for the Greek industry. There was published by the I think it was Holland, Netherlands, who made this study, which was calculating the cost, the final cost for the energy-intensive industries in Germany, Greece, France. So you see, and in Greece is 90 euros for 2024, and we see Germany is 46. And what is the reason behind? Is that all these subsidies that are given, we don't take it in as it is decided, as it is agreed, as it is approved by the European Commission. So they cut for the industry and they give it to the people to buy electrical cars. This is the pure.
Yeah, I
truth.
mean, Antonis, the point you're making here is actually, the discussion has been going on about the Green Deal and how is it affecting this whole the industry and the competitiveness. So, I mean, this is going to be like a whole new section that actually, we could have a topic on that. Unfortunately, because, I mean, we already started late, but because of the presentations, we only had 1 hour allotted, and then there's a second section on nuclear. We only have, there's no time for discussion, but since we, just for 5 minutes, as Mr. Stambolis mentioned, I want for you to, in 1 minute each, even less because 5 minutes doesn't add up, but to just think about, what was the main challenge we face now, or if there was something, you want to react on what, for example, I know that Antonis was, reacting to something that Pantelis said earlier. So I want to start first with Stelios. I mean, just if there was like one, point, and then move down the line, and the main challenge, and or the wrap, your kind of one concluding remark from this session. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. This works. Yeah. For sure, we have a lot of challenge ahead of us, both as countries, as TSOs, as European Union, or countries outside that. For us, the main challenge is that we need to increase the number of tasks that we deliver and the number of services that we deliver to our TSOs and the countries that we serve. For that, we need to increase the number of employees, of course, skilled people, engineers that can deliver the analysis and the studies. And this takes a bit of time to train everyone, but I believe we're up to that task to deliver all the services that we need to.
Sure. Pantelis?
Yes, just to conclude what we discussed in the previous run, the target, I think, for the wholesale electricity market in Greece, and I suppose it is the target of the ministry, is to how we can lower the supply cost for the end consumers. In order to do so, and for the industry, of course, it's very crucial. And to do so, we need to make several steps. We have a lot of steps to do in front of us. And a main step in this is to enforce even higher the application and the construction of renewables with storage entities. Of course, there is the issue of the investment, and the investment should be viable and economically financially feasible. For this reason, a crucial step is even though we maximize our renewable penetration and storage penetration, we should look at how we can secure the financial viability of the gas plants, because gas plants are needed for security of supply. But this cannot be a hindering let's say, reason for not deploying storage entities.
Yeah, storage and price is key. Effie?
Yes, so I would like to say that electricity markets change rapidly. The situation today is nothing to what it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and the future will be much different. We must not forget that electricity is a very technical commodity and very difficult to manage. There are technical limitations. And when we look to the future, we have to ensure that we have the adequate capacity and flexibility from batteries, gas, hydro, from wherever we can find it, demand, wherever we can find it.
Alexander, any words from Montenegro?
Thank you very much. Just one sentence I will repeat once again and underline. We all have the same problem, so we have to have good regional cooperation.
Okay, we believe that the government has to change their policy for the industry. At the moment, we see that this policy is do make PPAs, make purchase power agreements. This will not solve the problem. They need to secure our subsidies, which are approved, and without that, we cannot be competitive.
Excellent. I want you to put your hands together for a round of applause. It's a great panel. And we're moving to the next section, which is about nuclear energy. Thanks so much. And it's a pleasure for me to be back here. And thanks, Diana, once again. Thanks.
physically here being present, 2 Bulgarians. And then you will have also the pleasure to have online with us Mr. Tim Yeo, who is the chair of the New Nuclear Watch Institute, as well as Dr. Todor Chirica, who is the chairman of the board of directors of Nuclear Electrica Romania. First of all, let me tell you that the focus, when we talk about nuclear energy, the focus will not be on nuclear safety or on nuclear fuel. The topic is within the panel, which is related to the electricity market dynamics. That is, we shall deal mostly with the role of nuclear in the context of the electricity market. Of course, our speakers are most welcome to touch also on nuclear safety and nuclear fuel and technologies and so on, only to the extent this is kind of absolutely needed. Structure-wise, I would propose that after a very short introduction from my side, each of them will have about 5 to 6 minutes to make an introductory statement, and then we shall have, I hope, some 10-15 minutes. I'm looking about the generosity of Kostis Stambolis in this relation to give us 10-15 minutes more to the extent this is necessary. Now let me recall that the nuclear energy as an attitude kind of went through very intensive changes, ups and downs, while finally it got due recognition in the context of the Green Deal debate. Certainly, there are a lot of open questions. I myself have never hidden the fact that I'm a huge supporter of nuclear, but I have also very substantial questions in relation mostly to the competitiveness of nuclear, particularly when we look at the boom which the renewables, particularly the photovoltaics, are at. And besides, there's also an issue of timing, there's an issue of money, that is the price of all that. And thus I hope that our distinguished speakers will help us to get better orientation in this context. Tim, are you with us?
Well, I can see and hear you. Can you see and hear me?
Yeah, we see you. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm really sorry that you're not here. By the way, Tim, I know him for many years. He's not only extremely knowledgeable on the topic, having a world look, not only European on the issue, but also he has the possibility to talk in a very understandable way about these complex things. So, Tim, please use all your knowledge and charm within your 5 to 6 minutes.
Savjo, thank you very much for that very kind introduction. I'm really sorry I'm not with you today, but there was no way I could make it, I'm afraid, to Greece for this. I'm delighted to take part in the dialogue again, and I congratulate IENI and particularly my friend and colleague Kostis Stambolis on the preparations for this meeting and the production of another excellent background paper. What I want to do this morning is explain quickly why nuclear energy should be an essential part of the energy mix in almost every country as the world tackles the growing challenge of climate change. And that includes countries with large fossil fuel reserves, like many in your region, and even those with large renewable energy capacity. There are 3 reasons for this. Nuclear energy strengthens energy security. It stabilizes consumer prices, and it reduces greenhouse gas emissions, which in the long term will help prevent climate change from becoming irreversible. On energy security, once a nuclear reactor has been built, it will help the country where it's situated to reduce its dependence on imported energy. And since the world has plenty of uranium, the fabricated fuel needed to run nuclear plants is available from a wide range of politically and geographically diverse sources. There's no risk that fuel for nuclear plants will suddenly become unavailable in the way I'm afraid that gas imported from a single source can, as we've learned in the last few years. Secondly, fossil fuel prices, especially gas, are often quite volatile, and these price spikes hurt business and domestic consumers alike. The cause of these spikes are often beyond the control of individual governments. By contrast, the biggest element in the cost of a nuclear plant is the upfront build cost. Once a plant is operating, its running costs are low and they are stable. So having nuclear in a country's energy mix reduces the risks of sudden spikes in energy bills. And thirdly, international concern about climate change is mounting. It's clear now the target set in 2015 at the Paris COP 21 of keeping the rise in global average surface temperature below 1.5 degrees centigrade cannot now be reached. Even limiting the rise to 2 degrees will require much faster progress towards net zero by the world's largest emitters. Much faster progress than our current policies are set to deliver. And if the rise was to be above 2%, then large parts of the Earth will become uninhabitable, leading to enforced migration on a huge scale, creating climate refugees who had to move to seek new livelihoods, new homes in places where they might not always be welcome. So, my conclusion from that is that the time is right for investment in nuclear energy here in southeastern Europe. Renewable energy capacity is growing, and that's very good. But most of the growth in renewables is in solar and wind, which are intermittent generators of electricity. They cannot supply the base load 24/7 electricity on which modern economies all depend. Nuclear energy can supply that base load power. So what is southeastern Europe doing about this? Excuse me. Well, Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, Slovenia, Croatia already operate or own nuclear power plants. Hungary, Romania, and Slovenia, Croatia are all either expanding or considering expanding their nuclear energy capacity. And in addition, of course, Turkey will build at least 3 new plants in the next decade. As far as the EU is concerned, the inclusion of nuclear energy in the EU taxonomy of environmentally sustainable economic activities, which replaced the European Commission's previous hostility to nuclear energy, makes it easier for member states and countries which are candidates for EU membership to invest in new nuclear energy capacity. Now, as Slavko has mentioned, one frequent criticism of nuclear energy is that it's too expensive. Simple, accurate comparisons between the cost of nuclear and that of other low-carbon electricity generation technologies, such as renewables, are quite complicated and difficult. In the case of solar and wind, the 2 renewable technologies which are growing the fastest, allowance must be made for the cost of the backup generation capacity, which has to be maintained for when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. And when you factor that into the comparison of costs, nuclear energy looks very competitive. What's more, the main vendors of nuclear plants right now are in a competitive market. Hard bargains can be given by buyers, especially when it comes to the financial package, which is usually attached to a contract to build new plants. There's a very good analysis in today's Financial Times of how the market leader in this industry, the state-owned Russian company Rosatom, how they are coping with the economic sanctions imposed following the invasion of Ukraine. They will offer extremely attractive financial packages to their customers, who include about 1/3 of the world's developments of nuclear plants right now. So countries planning to invest in nuclear capacity should seek the best possible financial deal from their chosen vendor. And as far as possible, they should base their choice of vendor by reference to what best suits their country's energy needs, rather than on geopolitical considerations, which are likely to vary considerably over the long lifetime of a nuclear reactor. Finally, one more future development in the nuclear industry is very relevant to southeastern Europe. That is the arrival of small modular reactors. Their smaller size, typically around 300 megawatts, means that they can be deployed in much smaller communities than a plant with a capacity of over 1 gigawatt. We hope that small modular reactors will be easier, quicker and cheaper to construct than larger reactors, though this can't be proved until they are built at scale and in volume. Our study at the New Nuclear Watch Institute of the SMR market, available on our website, warns against some of the more optimistic claims made about how quickly SMRs may come into service. But we did confirm that by the end of the 2030s, SMRs could deliver the benefits of cost-competitive nuclear energy to places and communities which have previously been denied them. In conclusion, therefore, it's important to recognize that although many countries in Southeastern Europe enjoy good access to fossil fuels, and many are building significant renewable energy capacity, there remains an important role for nuclear energy to play here in Southeastern Europe. And right now is the ideal time to start investing more heavily in nuclear energy.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. I take very good note of your key three messages, which I found firstly that nuclear and renewables are not in competition. They are kind of additive to each other, if I may say so. Secondly, that price-wise, when calculating the price of nuclear, comparing it to renewables, one should take into consideration also the baseload capacities which are necessary as to support the renewables when they are not used. And last but not least, the issue of the new technologies, the small modular reactors. We shall have the chance to listen something more concrete, I believe, from our Romanian friend who is on the panel, because they have already started on that. But just let me also recall that further to the world level analysis in this aspect, there was also a concrete position of the European Commission related to small modular reactors. So this is something which definitely is banging on the door, depending, of course, on many other aspects, including the regulatory aspect, which we did not touch currently. Now, it is my greatest pleasure to address my very old friend. Please don't be misled about his title, as he is presented as an expert in the National Revenue Agency. I know him for 31 years, and when we met, he was director of a project management, project implementation unit related to nuclear, and he has been in many different positions as a part of the team managing the nuclear power plant, as an advisor to the minister, and in many other capacities. So, Tony, tell us your view on what is the perception of nuclear and what should be the perception of nuclear in the context of the current market developments.
Hello to everybody, and thank you for inviting me on this important event. I would stress my short presentation on Bulgarian case because we have a very high priority in our energy strategy on nuclear. We stand on two pillars. One is maintaining our two large units which are in operation, and recently we had prolonged operation decision with next 30 years, which is very important. And it's proved that nuclear, once it's connected to the grid, is very competitive. It's provide the lowest price on a Bulgarian market, even lower than hydropower plants that we have, and it's lower than new renewables. So it's very competitive once it's on a grid, connected to the grid. Of course, our big challenge is our next step toward the new nuclear project that we have at the same site, at the Kozloduy site, again with large units, two units of same size as we have currently. And as Tim mentioned, the main challenge here is the financial one, but not only. You see, in very centralized states, when they got projects from very centralized provider of this technology, they need at least 15 years to build new nuclear unit, at least 15 years. This is the true for United Emirates. This is the true for Turkey. So not to mention other countries. In Europe, we do not have anything of this. So new nuclear is more unpredictable as something that will be connected to the grid. But once it is connected, it will be for sure delivering higher security, higher option for electrification, and higher possibilities to generate the needed hydrogen that we need for further transformation, energy, and industrial transformation on our continent. That's why I firmly believe that new nuclear project, even the large one, they are in situation to be very well connected to our European strategy for development, and we need to find more reasons to support this type of investment, and not to look how to criticize and to stop this type of investments, even more that they will happen in other corners of the world, and Europe will be again in position to lose market and to lose ability for some very reasonable energy sources. I'm available for discussion, but I'm looking to be very short in order to have this option for.
I shall ask you just to elaborate with one sentence on two aspects which I think you did not mention about the new projects which are considered, about the new technologies and the new fuel. They're in the context of diversification, because the reactors which we have are Russian, while those which are planned are.
Well, the new reactors will be American. The one that we have, they are Russian, but we manage already to establish the system for maintenance of these reactors, having European origin of anything that we need for their operation.
Okay. Thank you. No, we shall come back afterwards. Sorry, we shall come back on that. Now, may I give the floor to Dr. Theodor Chirica, who is the chair of Nuclear Electrica Romania. Are you online, Dr. Chirica? Hello? We can't hear you. Please turn off your microphone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Can you hear us?
I'm not very familiar with Zoom. We are working with Teams, so that is take some time to educate myself.
No worries. Most important is that you're familiar with nuclear.
Okay. So,
Right. Just before you start, let me warm you up with one thing which I heard yesterday from a compatriot of yours who was part of the panel.
Yes, was in my panel.
Evgenia Guzilov.
Yep.
She said that yesterday that currently in Romania the prosumers are so active that not only the authorities, that is the government and the regulatory authority and the parliament, can follow with the relevant formal steps the developments, but also that the level of involvement of the prosumers with electricity which is outside the grid is reaching the capacity of the nuclear reactors you're having. She mentioned the figure 1,400 megawatts. I'm just quoting.
Yes, it's right.
So please tell us, and please also make explicit reference to something which is very interesting. We're looking very much at what's going on in Romania with the identification of a small modular reactor site. Thank you. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Your colleague and my friend were already friends. He listened very well what's going there about prosumers. I'm not an expert in electricity market, but that is in this moment, I don't say that we are in competition with prosumers, because each part they have their side of the covering the electricity necessity in the country. And what is it, however, the impression was very good from your colleague, and I say that it's very good to have a good economist in the business. So now, long time we were relying more on engineers, but now we realize that the benefit the economists may bring in our branch. So I will talk also about SMRs. I say that our mission is aligned with Romanian ambitious decarbonization goals, aiming to reduction CO2 emissions by 55% by 2030. In Romania, but not only, nuclear is part of the critical infrastructure and security of supply, part of the strategy to reduce the import dependency and retire obsolete coal capacities. As a baseload technology, as everywhere, we are providing stability to the grid and competitive energy to consumers. With 1,400 megawatt installed in a Candu heavy water nuclear power plant, we are contributing to all those targets. And by 2031, 2032, our plans consider to double this capacity with another 2 units, 2 Candu units, to which will be added a small modular reactor project, bringing another 465 megawatts. The site of Doicești is a former site of a coal power plant. Practically, we are following this approach that to take advantage of the different facilities, the transformers, the connection with the grid, the water supply, and so that this is our target. However, the site was accepted by the regulatory body. Of course, we obtain their a letter from their side about recognizing that this site is adequate for a nuclear power plant. But of course, you know very well what's going on with licensing of a nuclear power plant. After that, we have to receive the license for the design. Fortunately, this design is already licensed in the United States, and probably will not. They will move quite fast on that. But they have to obtain the license for construction, and at the end, the license for operation. A key project that we have is the refurbishment of Unit 1 at Cernavodă. The plant will reach the 30 years in 2027, 2028, and practically the license will be removed. And we are in the process to contractual negotiations. There are some steps, important steps. 10 days ago, it was concluded the project management contractor with Canadian Nuclear Partners. And also, meanwhile, Cernavodă started the works for tritium removal facility in partnership with KHNP, the Korean utility. They built the second such facility in the world after the one in Canada. Tritium is an interesting material. It's very dangerous in the plant. So that there are a lot of supplementary measures in the Candu power plant and the procedures for that. And also, it's more important that when we start the refurbishment, because we need to create an atmosphere for the workers that will be inside there. So to reduce, the idea is to reduce very much the tritium in order to expedite the work. In Pointle Pro, For example, at that time, it was not a tritium removal facility in force in Canada. I read in a paper that they use a huge number of workers because they cannot keep the workers in the core area, how to say, more than 2-3 hours per day. Just to remain in their schedule. Now it is very good to have this facility. And tritium has another advantage. This is a good fuel for fusion. So that already we have some preliminary discussions with these sectors. The advantage for life extension is that at the end of the day, the cost is half cost than a new CANDU unit.
Okay.
And also is the half time for completion.
Okay, thank you very much. Please stay with us. I just wanted to, first of all, to tell you that I feel a little bit offended because you said that aside the engineers, the economists are very important, but you forgot the lawyers. And I'm a lawyer.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I think the lawyers should be also kind of, their role should be also underlined in a way. Now, my question to you is, do you think, having in mind the look at the region, your plans at national level, the Bulgarian plans which you heard about, and also recalling the fact that in Turkey, aside Akuyu, which is at the edge of starting, there are two other ideas, Sinop and Ineada, and Ineada is some 40-50 kilometers away from the Bulgarian border. Do you think that we are competitors in the context of nuclear? Because I think that currently the region is flooded with energy. And having such big capacities, do you think that we are competitors and there should be also kind of consideration in this aspect? Because the money is a lot.
Yes, it might be an issue that, but in my opinion, as far as we were considering also the growth of the consumption, maybe some of predictions are not real in some times, but there is, and it will be an increase of construction, and also practically is, you know, that we are relying on coal, and in this target to cut the coal production is the replacement with the nuclear is something that can sort this problem, and I do not see that will be terrible competition between Romanians, Hungarians, and other countries that are operating a nuclear power plant.
Okay.
At this moment, I'm confident that this is not the case.
Okay, thanks a million. Now I shall ask the floor if they have some questions, because we are really very much ahead of time. Anybody who wants to make a statement, disagreement, to ask a question, or something, please, very specific and concrete, indicating also whom you are targeting. Yes, Mr. Stambolis. We're looking for the microphone.
I take advantage of this delay to say hello to Tim. I met him long time ago. I have very good memories about the conferences we attended together.
Right.
Welcome back in face of my eyes.
So, Kostis.
I just wanted to extend a big thank you to both Professor Kirika and TBL for their participation. Of course, Mr. Antonov, Mr. Ivanov. I think the important thing to stress here is that for the first time we had a panel on nuclear power. on nuclear energy. And this is very important because we want to bring up the subject from now on, as nuclear is definitely going to play a crucial role as we move ahead with decarbonization plans in our part of the world. And according to our analysis, unless nuclear power develops further in most part of the region, there is very little chance that we're going to see falling CO2 levels and moving forward with clean technologies. So I think nuclear power has a big role to play in our advance towards clean energy technologies in the region, and it's important, and this is why I consider very important this particular session, and the fact that we have two very acclaimed experts, three acclaimed experts, who know the region. They have worked many years. Euclectic is one of the biggest nuclear companies. Tim Yeo has been following this for many years, and the institute he is heading is already playing a very leading role in the public discussion. And of course, Mr. Ivanov is really an old hand in nuclear power. So we couldn't have got a better panel to start the discussion in this at this level. So thank you very much all for your participation, and thank you, Slavcho, for moderating this.
I think this was an excellent wrap up. Let me also thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing you live next time. Yes, please, Doctor.
I like just to add one paragraph regarding the education, which is, in my opinion, is important. So we are investing in training of workforce. Now the Polytechnic University, another 12 universities from Romania, they created and set the National School for Nuclear Energy. Their intention is to prepare people for operation, for construction, for fabrication, so to how to spread this quality assurance and nuclear safety culture instead of the people working in nuclear. So that is, in my opinion, is an initiative could be developed regionally.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much once again, and thank all of you for being here with us. You're a brilliant audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your attention, and next time I have to have more time to address our, what we can say,